There is a feeling you have that your children will never have. Not a memory of a place, a memory of a state of mind. The feeling of not knowing something and having to sit inside that not knowing with no way out but time. You remember it. The argument at the dinner table that could not be settled, so it just hung there for days. The road you took that turned out to be wrong, and the long, quiet drive back. The name on the tip of your tongue that surfaced, on its own, at 3 a.m, hours after you had given up. You think of these as small frustrations. They were not. They were the texture of a mind that had to hold its own questions. And you are among the last people who will ever remember what that felt like. We talk about artificial intelligence as a thing that gives us answers, faster answers, better answers, answers to questions we did not even know we had. And that is true, and it is extraordinary, and it is not the part that should frighten you. Because the deepest change is not in the answers you receive, it is in what happens to the part of you that used to go without them. You're watching cold static. One question: what does a species forget when it can no longer remember not knowing? Start with what the old world actually was, because it is already getting hard to describe. For every human being who lived before you, knowing was effort. To learn a thing, you carried it to someone older, or you found it in a book, or you worked it out alone in the dark. Knowledge had weight. It cost you something to hold. And because it cost something, you held it differently. A fact you fought for stayed. A route you got lost on became a map inside your skull. The friend who knew the one thing you did not, you needed them, and they needed you, and that need was a thread between two people. Think of how that world actually felt in the body. The hush of a library, and the slow walk down a row of spines, not knowing if the book you needed was even there. The encyclopedia on the shelf that was already a little out of date the day it arrived, and how you trusted it anyway. The stranger you stopped on a street corner to ask for directions, and the small human exchange of it, the pointing, the thank you. The phone call you had to wait for, because the only person who knew the answer was not home, and there was nothing to do but wait. Waiting was woven into knowing. You could not pull the future forward. You lived at the speed of asking. A psychologist named Betsy Sparrow gave this its first real name. In a study at Columbia, she showed that when people believe a fact has been saved somewhere they can reach it later, they remember the fact itself far less. Their minds quietly let it go. She called it the Google effect. Your brain, sensibly, stops storing what the machine has promised to keep. For most of history, the thing that kept your knowledge was another mind, a village elder, a grandmother, a friend. This is what researchers call transactive memory. You did not have to know everything because you knew who to ask. And knowing who to ask was itself a kind of love. Now the thing that keeps your knowledge doesn't love you back. It doesn't need you. It is a box, and it is always open, and it never forgets, and it never gets tired of being asked. And so, quietly, you stopped asking each other. Watch how fast this part is moving. A child born this year will grow up in a house where every question has an instant answer, in a calm, patient voice. They will never know the specific ache of wanting to know something and not being able to. They will never get truly lost because the map reroutes before they feel fear. They will never sit with a hard question long enough for it to change them. A neuroscientist named Veronique Bobot studied what happens to the brain when we let a machine navigate for us. People who rely on turn-by-turn directions year after year show less activity and, over time, less gray matter in the hippocampus, the part of the brain that builds maps, the part that builds memory itself. Use the machine to find your way, and the muscle that found the way begins, very slowly, to soften. It is not only direction. A reading scientist named Marianne Wolf has spent years warning that the deep-reading brain, the slow kind that sinks into a long, difficult argument and wrestles with it, is not something we are born with. It is built, painstakingly, through effort, and it can come apart when the effort stops. When every text is skimmed and every hard passage can be summarized for you in a sentence, the circuitry for patient, deep thought is simply used less. And what the brain uses less, it keeps less. This is the pattern. Not theft. Surrender. We are not having our minds taken from us. We are handing them over, one small task at a time, because each time the trade feels obviously worth it. Why hold the phone number? Why memorize the route? Why read the whole thing? Why struggle with the question when the answer is right there? Every single time, the answer is right there. That is exactly the problem. Pull back, because this is not the first time our species made this bargain. It is only the largest. Thousands of years ago, in a dialogue written by Plato, the philosopher Socrates worried about a dangerous new technology: writing. He feared that if people could store their thoughts on the page, they would stop carrying them in their souls. They would seem wise, he said, while truly knowing nothing, because they had traded living memory for marks on a surface. He was right, and he was wrong. We did lose something. The epic poems that once lived whole inside a single human mind do not live there anymore. But we gained a civilization that could remember beyond the span of one life. Every trade like this takes something and gives something. Fire took our claws and gave us cooking. Writing took our memory and gave us history. But look at the shape of what we are trading now. Not the storage of knowledge, the making of it, the act of wondering, of being confused, of turning a question over until it cracks open. We are not outsourcing what we know. We are outsourcing the part of us that knows. And here is the thing no one born after will be able to feel. There is no alarm when it happens, no moment of loss. The child who never struggles to know does not experience a lack. They simply have a smaller room inside them, and they will never know it was ever meant to be larger, because the only people who remember the larger room are you. Now go all the way out. To the scale that has watched every one of these trades and felt nothing. A small blue world, one mind among billions, doing something no mind in the known universe has done before. For 4 billion years, this planet grew brains the slow way, each one forced to meet reality without help. Each one a little universe building its own model of the dark. Every one of them earned what it knew. The first creature that remembered where the water was. The first that taught its young a word. The first that looked up and wondered what the lights were, and had no one, anywhere, to ask. All of that wondering, billions of years of it, pressed forward into you. And now, in the space of a single human life, that same species has built a second kind of mind and begun, gently, gratefully, to lean its own thinking against it. Maybe that is the next step. Maybe this is how a species grows up, the way a child finally puts down the crutch, and the crutch turns out to be a rocket. Or maybe it is how a mind forgets it ever had legs. And then come all the way back, past the planet, past the years, down to a room, a chair, a screen, and you, holding a question you could answer in 1 second by asking the machine, feeling the old, almost forgotten pull to just sit with it instead. Here is where I am supposed to tell you to throw it all away, to memorize phone numbers and read paper maps and refuse the answers. I won't. That world is gone, and most of it should be. The machine is a gift, and pretending otherwise is just a different kind of lie. The clarity is smaller and harder. You do not have to stop using it. You only have to remember that you remember. To keep alive, on purpose, the one thing the whole arrangement is quietly retiring, the ability to not know, to let a question sit overnight before you reach for the answer. To get lost on purpose, sometimes, and feel the old map redraw itself. To carry one thing in your own mind, not because you have to, but because the carrying is what a mind is for. You are not the last people who will be smart. The machines will make sure no one is ever uninformed again. You are the last people who will remember being curious in the dark. The last who knew the particular dignity of working something out alone. The last who can still feel the difference between having an answer and having understood. Spend that memory. Hand it down. Not the facts, the feeling. Show one person, while you still can, what it was like to wonder without a net. The machine will remember everything. That was never the danger. The danger is that it remembers so well, you forget you were ever supposed to. So before you go, one thing. The last time you did not know something, did you reach for the answer? Or did you let yourself wonder, even for a moment, in the dark? There are not many of us left who can still choose the second one. The static never fully clears. I'll see you in the next signal.